What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Fantasy Stock Exchange here, and today I'll be going through my top Week 12 waivers players at the running back and wide receiver position, 10 players total, that you guys can pick up to boost your squad entering this week's matchup. With crunch time heating up for your guys' playoff push, these pickups can help you pick up some wins through bye weeks and injuries and potentially set you up for a bye week for your fantasy football league. Hopefully you guys won in Week 11, but if you didn't, I'll be outlining 5 main players and 5 honorable mentions that can help you secure the dub this week in Week 12 of fantasy football. Again, whether you're competing for that 6 seed, whether you're competing for that 1 seed, a lot of these guys can help you secure the dub down the stretch. If you enjoy this type of video, make sure you leave a like down below. Let's try to get this video to over 100 likes. So if you enjoy, smash that like button. And of course, subscribe to the channel. We just crossed 17,000. Let's try to hit 20,000 by the end of the season. But either way, let's hit the intro. All right, before I get into the main 5 players, I'm just going to go through a few guys that should be rostered in your league, but you should check to make sure because they're in that 40 to 70% range according to Yahoo Fantasy. Brian Robinson, running back of the Washington Commanders. Kenyon Drake, running back for the Baltimore Ravens, as well as Gus Edwards, running back of the Baltimore Ravens. Christian Watson, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers, rookie wide receiver. Very good Thursday night football game this past week. I doubt he'll be available, but if he is, I mean, this could be a potential wide receiver one for Aaron Rodgers on the stretch. George Pickens, wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, another young, talented rookie wide receiver. Looks like he could be the potential wide receiver one of that Pittsburgh team, given that role he has in that offense. And then finally, Darius Slayton, wide receiver of the New York Giants. Clearly going to be the Giants wide receiver one down the stretch with the recent news that Wan'Dale Robinson did indeed tear his ACL in this week's past game. But transitioning off of those guys, let's get into the main list. The number one waiver wire pickup of the week is going to be Treylon Burks, wide receiver of the Tennessee Titans, rostered in 20% of Yahoo Fantasy leagues. And the rookie wide receiver had his breakout game. He totaled 8 targets, converted 7 of them into receptions, put up 111 receiving yards in this past game. He only really played in 3 wide receiver sets, but he was the clear wide receiver one on the Titans when he was on the field. It's really good to see that type of involvement, especially, from a rookie receiver, not getting the full snaps, yet he's still increasing his level of involvement on a week-to-week basis in this offense. And I do think that as he gets further along from the injury that held him out for a few weeks, I expect him to work more so in those 2 wide receiver sets. Again, only a 3 wide receiver set player this past week, but I do think as he comes from that injury, as he gets healthier, as he gets right back into the mix, I do think that the Titans are going to eventually work him into 2 wide receiver sets. And if that's the case, if he's this dominant despite only playing 3 wide receiver sets, you could just imagine that dynamic playmaker when he's on the field, getting a full allotment of snaps. He could potentially be a league winner down the stretch. At this rate, if he is available in your league, he is worth your whole budget. I'm going to put 30 to 50% plus here, but realistically, again, if you still have Fab at this point, this is the type of player you want to blow it on. Big, explosive, young rookie receiver, looking like he could be a potential league winner down the stretch. Number 2 waiver of the week is going to be Latavius Murray, running back of the Denver Broncos, rostered in 23% of Yahoo Fantasy leagues. And the Broncos back is the clear top running back on the wire after the recent news of Melvin Gordon's release, as well as Chase Edmonds' addition to the IR list for the Denver Broncos. He is the only back left standing in this backfield. He already had a stranglehold on that Broncos running back one role, but with these changes, he is a clear back-end running back 2 projection based off that potential workload he should see alone. If you are struggling at running back, this is your guy. I think 30-ish% of your fab should be able to get it done. And I'd be more than comfortable doing that at this portion of the year. You guys would have seen the usage, but he was the clear alpha number 1 running back already before that, leading Melvin Gordon in snaps across the board. But with Melvin Gordon out of the fold, we're looking at a potential 60, 70% opportunity share guide in the stretch, which, again, if you're fighting for that playoff spot, is all you need at your running back spot. 30% fab, get it done. We can move on to the next player. The next player will be Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver of the Cleveland Browns. 45% roster in Yahoo Fantasy leagues. And DPJ is experiencing a semi-third year breakout. He's coming alive to the tune of 12.6 PPR points per game since week 4, despite only 1 touchdown in that stretch. If you were to pace that 12.56 PPR points per game, that would be the wide receiver 33 on the season. And I think right now he's a very viable, wide receiver 3 to 4 on a week-to-week basis with Jacoby Brissett under center. But the real upside is held once Deshaun Watson returns to this lineup. The Browns currently average 33.2 pass attempts per game, a number that should see a significant rise in volume, as well as an overall boost of the efficiency of the passing offense once the number 4 comes back in the fold. He's currently a top 40 wide receiver, but I do think he has a legitimate top 25 to 30 level ceiling once Watson returns to this lineup. Could provide extreme value down the stretch for your playoff push, and I think he could be a very, very stout flex play. Again, say you have Tyreek Hill as your wide receiver 1 and like Devontae Smith is your wide receiver 2. Donovan Peoples-Jones can be that perfect complement, that perfect third wide receiver for you down the stretch. In terms of fab, I think 20% should be able to get it done for DPJ. But realistically, given the eye candy at the top of the waivers this week, you might be able to sneak 20% on Donovan Peoples-Jones. Next player is going to be running back Samaje Perine, running back of the Cincinnati Bengals, rostered in 8% of Yahoo fantasy leagues. And he had a really dominant game this past week, totaling 82 yards from scrimmage on 15 touches and 3 touchdowns to the tune of 30.2 PPR fantasy points. The big kicker here, of course, as you guys know, is that starter Joe Mixon suffered a concussion that rendered him out for the game. And assuming Joe is not Superman, his best course of action is to sit out for this week. If that's going to be the case, we saw that the Bengals' clear insurance plan for Mixon is a workhorse role for Samaje Perine. He's a running back 2 anytime Mixon is out of the lineup and is a clear high insurance handcuff with a ton of implied value, again, if Mixon were to miss more time down the stretch. Assuming Mixon is out for this week, I think he's going to be a top 20 caliber running back. So just for this week's utility alone, I think that 20% fab on Perine should be able to get it done. And then finally, number 5, we have Parris Campbell, wide receiver of the Indianapolis Colts, rostered in 40% of Yahoo fantasy leagues. And Parris Campbell has quietly been a target hog with Matt Ryan under center, earning 38 targets in their last 4 games together. He did technically trail behind both Pittman and Alec Pierce in this game on Sunday, but Parris has still been an extremely productive wide receiver. I'm just starting to think that he's a good player in an offense that has thrown the ball nearly 40 times per game with Matt Ryan as their starter. I think that Campbell can be that, wide receiver 3-4 mix every single week, similar to DPJ, and offers a great week-to-week flex appeal for those clawing for that playoff spot. Similar to DPJ, 20% fab. The reason why I prefer DPJ is because you have that presence of Watson coming into the fold, whereas Parris Campbell, you kind of know where your range of outcomes are when you pick him up. But before we exit here, honorable mentions, Cam Akers, running back of the Los Angeles Rams, looks to have taken back that starting running back job from Darrell Henderson this past week, led the team in carries, led the team in snaps. He was the clear operating RB1 this past week. The only problem here, of course, this Rams offense kind of sucks. Cooper Kupp is injured, and Matt Stafford may potentially be held out for the next few weeks with a potential concussion. Next player, Nico Collins, wide receiver of the Houston Texans, clearly operating as that quasi wide receiver 2 next to Brandon Cooks in that team. Adds a vertical element, big, strong boundary wide receiver. Been getting a lot of volume in recent weeks, 17 targets in his past 2 games. Next player is going to be Jameson Williams, wide receiver of the Detroit Lions, rookie wide receiver, top 12 overall pick in the NFL draft. Think a guy like Jalen Waddle, that is a level of ability in the open field in terms of his speed, in terms of his agility, in terms of his pure movement ability that Jameson Williams can add to a fold for a Lions team that has a ton of volume over there on offense. After Amon St. Brown, Jameson Williams can immediately step in as that clear-cut number 2 weapon on that team. Odell Beckham Jr., wide receiver of potentially my Dallas Cowboys. We got the free agent wide receiver still mulling some options, but obviously the talent is clearly there, one of the best wide receivers of our generations. And it's going to come down to, for the most part, the Giants or the Cowboys here. I'd assume that the Cowboys probably have the upper leg, given the fact that Odo said he wants to play for a winner, and the Cowboys are clearly in a better position, in my opinion, this year to compete than the Giants are. So therefore, if Odell Beckham signs, it will most likely be with a star on his helmet. And if that's the case, we already know that this is one of the top offenses in the entire league. Odell Beckham adds a great speed element to this offense and could potentially be a solid high upside wide receiver play down the stretch. And then finally, James Cook, running back of the Buffalo Bills. The only thing stepping in the way from him potentially being in a running back 2 down the stretch is the health of Devin Singletary. Obviously, Devin Singletary is the unquestioned running back 1 for this Buffalo Bills team, but James Cook needs to be rostered on the sole fact that we know this offense is high-powered. We know this offense can score points. And if anything, again, were to happen to Singletary, James Cook could potentially be an RB2 plus down the stretch. But either way, I appreciate you guys for making it to the end of this video. And of course, if you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel, again, on the road to 20,000 subscribers as always. And stay tuned for the rest of the week as we drop some absolute heaters for you guys to prepare you for your fantasy football matchups. But until then, take care.
Wire me the money.